Hey everyone, welcome back to another game of the Amsterdam Chess Open. This is game 3 for me, but round 4 as I had a bye in round 2. I am at 0 out of my 2 games that I played. I didn't win any game so far, and it's extremely frustrating and a burden psychologically on my mind to just try to bounce back in this tournament after just 2 miserable first games in which I had at least a draw or I had really good momentum. And so this is my bounce back game. I hope you enjoy. So I have the black pieces here against a 2000 named Niels Bouton. In French, bouton means button, so we're playing against Niels Button. My opponent opens with something super weird. He goes with one knight c3, a move I've never played against in classical chess in my life. Good for me is that I knew he would go with something weird like this because I had a hunch. I saw that he had games from 1995, 1994, and 1996, all starting with this first move as white. I had d5 prepared, and on e4, which is the main first move, first time I played this in my life, I go with d4, attacking the knight and knight e2, and now I go with c5, something that Daniil Dubov played with the black pieces and won with the black pieces after getting a lot of space, and then eventually in his game he opened the c-file, doubled the rooks, and won. So I didn't want to do exactly this, but I liked the system. So he goes with knight c6, and then I went with e5 here. This is inaccurate. Instead you want to go with h5, and black has an overwhelming advantage, positional advantage in the opening. Like, who would have known? h5, probably to burden this knight with h4, and after h5, h4 by them, now I would go bishop g4. And this bishop is really tough to kick, and so it's just a really good position. I went with e5, and I really didn't like my position after bishop c4. You see, the white pieces will just develop so nicely with d3 coming in, bishop g5. This bishop is razoring through my position, and this is where I go for something quite ambitious. Say in the comments if you like this. It is a divisive move positionally, but I went with bishop e6. The idea is that I propose a trade of bishops here, and if you take, which happens in the game, I get doubled pawns. I know I'm getting doubled pawns, but the idea is that I take up f5. So I take out your really good bishop, and I take up f5 to burden this knight. And so my opponent ensued with d3, and I just, like, surprisingly, I really like the white pieces. They just have a lot of chemistry between the pieces early on in this game, whereas my development is not insane, but it's okay. I go with bishop d6, which is what Dubov played, so I trusted it, but really, in theory, this bishop is disgusting. Knight g5 was played here. The knight is really aggressive, attacking e6, preparing maybe queen h5. The best move here will absolutely... The wind here is crazy. I can't stabilize my tripod for some reason, but anyways. So after knight g5, I played queen e7, and then he followed suit with c3. Like, super weird 2 moves here. First, knight g5 just attacking a pawn, and now c3 attacking my pawn structure. I didn't really understand until I looked a little bit deeper. White wants to play queen b3, attacking b7 and e6. e6 is not that easy of a pawn to defend. I only have like knight d8 to do that. So I go with knight here. You will never believe the best move in this position. It's actually h6. Letting in queen h5 and now king d7, and black have a slight advantage here. Don't ask me how or why, I don't know. But yeah, super weird. Instead, I go with the normal development to castle, knight f6, and after queen b3 attacking e6, I go with knight d8. It's probably the only move here to defend this pawn. If I go king d7 to defend, my b7 pawn falls because my queen doesn't defend it anymore. So that was kind of an issue there. So I go knight d8, and after castles, I go with h6. Finally kicking that knight, such an annoying knight. It's out of here now, we're glad. Knight f3, and now I go for castles. Castles is a mistake here, but I knew what it gave, which is knight f5. So takes first, and then knight f5. For me, castles was like the only move that, yes, it gives knight f5, but it really progresses my position. Like, if I don't castle, my king's in the center, my knight's on d8, I don't do anything here. I don't have any aspirations. So I let in knight f5, and the idea is that you can trade off my dark squared bishop. So after queen d7, you can take here. My opponent did not take. I guess they didn't see anything past it, which is fair. I was willing to give it just as much. So bishop d2 is played, and now there's an interesting threat. My opponent is threatening to take on d6, and after queen takes, there's bishop b4. This skewers my queen on d6 and my rook on f8, and I would lose the exchange. So I have to defend with knight c6, taking up the b4 square, and I had foreseen knight takes d6, queen takes, and queen takes. Though in this variation, I was fine with the fact that I give a pawn in exchange for the b2 pawn. I saw bishop a5 in this variation with knight b6, but apparently this is plus 1.5 for white. But I had seen all of this, and I was like, it's probably fine for black. But no, this is actually advantage white, and my opponent should have done this. Instead, they brought their knight back. Now I go with king h7, so I never see these knight f5 things ever again in my life. We're done with that. And now rook c1. And for now, I would say in this first part of the game, the opening, I got pretty much crushed, psychologically at least, and definitely on the board. And so now we move into the middle game, and I would like to say that I've survived so far. So now I go with knight g8, a very positional move. I want to reorient my knight to f4. It looks pretty good, right? But after a3, my little knight move is looking pretty mean, as I have a tactical idea here that I follow through with in the game that is absolutely insane. And in this position, I go ahead and after 3 minutes of thought, I sacrifice the exchange on f3. One of my first positional sacrifices of a book. I've been reading about positional sacrifices for a very long time, for a month now, continuously, and now I make the positional sac, rook takes f3. There are 4 components why I made this positional sacrifice and why it was fruitful in this position for me to do this. Number 1, I double pawns and weaken the king. That's actually 2 points. So doubling pawns will mean that there's another weakness for me to grab more material from, and weakening the king means that it's fruitful for me to have an attack on the king. That's 2 points. Number 3, it is a closed position. So because of this closed center, or relatively semi-closed, you could argue, position, these rooks are less venomous than knights. So my knights will actually bode better in a close position than rooks. As long as these rooks have no counterplay, my knights are all the talk of the town. And then number 4, I saw a plan. So I saw a plan that would eventually either win back this f3 pawn or give me a good attack. And that was continuing with my knight g8 plan. I'm very loyal as a chess player to my pieces. Rook f8 first, you have to attack the f3 pawn and engage the queen or the king to go back. And now I go with the follow through of my knight. Knight g7. Can you see the pattern or the path for my knight here? I want to go with knight g6 and not a knight f4 now, but knight h4 to pressure this f3 pawn that is super hard to defend, because once again, component number 5, white does not have a light squared bishop to defend this nice pawn and to defend the weak light squares that I created around this king. So that's another component to this idea, which made the sacrifice more interesting. Oh no, the wind, hello. So knight g7, my opponent goes with king h1, and now knight g6. I am going for h4. It's really hard to protect the h4 square. So the best my opponent comes up with is knight h5, knight h4 attacking this pawn, and here rook g1. Serving some counter-attacking chances on g7, and it's really not obvious to just play g5 immediately, which I calculated in the game and was not convinced. Because here, white has a not bad bishop takes g5, believe it or not. H takes and rook takes, threatening rook g7 as well. And there are, let me tell you, so many tactics from this position for white. I was calculating on and on just to find something okay for black, and really couldn't. Let's say rook f7. Here, white can play rook g7 check, and if you take, you deflect the rook off the f6 square, and now knight f6 wins the queen. And if you don't take, let's say you play king h6, there is queen d2 check on this king, and if you take the knight, it is checkmate. If you go back here, let's say king h8, there's just knight f6, which is so nice. Threatening checkmate and threatening the queen. And if you take the knight, I'm obviously taking the queen. I really also didn't want to go into 3 pieces for a queen. It's usually good to go into 3 minor pieces for a queen, but in this position, it's not enough, I reckoned, because my king was exposed. So let's say rook g7, queen takes, knight takes, king takes. Here I have 1, 2, 3 pieces for the queen, ultra rare in chess. I just didn't love this endgame, so I decided against g5, all to say, and played instead g6, which is the best move and such an accurate move. You're hitting this knight and this pawn at the same time. It's a fork. It's a double attack, sorry. And if the knight goes back, which doesn't happen in the game, I just take the pawn and I'm very happy. I have compensation for the piece, and this is at least an equal position, and my pieces are absolutely dominating. But my opponent does something, as I also saw, that I found not very good, and it isn't really good. It's a mistake. It's f4. f4 aims to open up this queen on this knight, and it aims to play against takes. It's a sacrifice. But I saw that after queen takes, it's largely really good for white. Like, I don't know why I would ever go into this, and I can't really defend anything. So I just have takes, and it's like way better for black. I had seen this. I was very happy that I saw that the normal patient takes is really good. You'll see this theme in this game, in which for probably the first time of my OTB games, I am absolutely patient. I resound with patience, which was not the case in tournament number 1, and sometimes the case lacking in tournament number 2, and certainly not the case in tournament number 3 with the pawn grabs in the first 2 rounds. I take on f4, still attacking this knight, and after queen here, again, I can't take this knight because of queen takes, and this is just horrible for me, so I would never do that. I played g5. And now, white is freaking out because you realize that I won a pawn back for the exchange that I sacrificed. This knight is basically trapped. Think about it, where's the knight going? And so in later stages, when I have more pieces that can gravitate towards it, this knight is in trouble. And I have knight e5 coming in. Knight e5 attacking the queen, that's the only hope of defense of this knight, and knight e5 going to f3 with like Dementor stuff things. Yeah, Harry Potter reference, full spin. My opponent sacks the rook back, which is now giving me the safety. You're okay. And it was such an aha moment, like a release of tension, you know? I don't have all this pressure to gain back material for the piece. I'm good now. And so I take back with the b pawn, and the idea of rook takes is that just preventing the knight move. My knight was gonna be like level 9 knight, super strong. So now I'm good, I'm up a pawn, and I have a nice position, and this knight is pretty weak. So my plan is just to reorient this knight now and actually go to e5, because that is the square for the knight. My opponent goes bishop c1 to defend the pawn, and now I go queen f7. Keeping a pressure on this knight so that this queen needs to stay on this knight, and the queen can't counterattack on the queen side, which is nice. So rook g1, and now I play f3, which is just threatening this knight and forcing knight g3, to which knight g4 I really liked, because after queen f1, now you see that almost all of white's pieces are literally trapped. The queen has to stay on f1, so it has literally 2 squares. The knight has no squares. The rook has no squares that doesn't give it, and the bishop has 1 square. It gets worse from here. c5, I mean, it took all of my patience to not do anything that was impatient and like fast forward or push this game, pressure this game. And it took all of my patience to play c5 here. I'm very proud of myself. c5 is just against b4 things and aims to have a more convincing rook b8 in the future. That's it. Like, I'm so proud of myself. I really loved bishop takes g3 things. It doesn't work. Of course, on this, there's mate in 2 moves, so that wouldn't be a case. And on this, I have f2, it's completely over. Like, just an example, this, knight here, bishop takes, and then I'm coming in with queen here and e2, it's completely over. But on takes, there's just rook takes, and after that, I have pretty much absolutely nothing. So I just retain my good pieces on the board and don't play the obvious bishop f4, which looked so appetizing. It's a really nice move. On bishop takes, I have g takes, and this knight is trapped. Not queen takes, but g takes, and this is winning. And the only reason I didn't play it is because there's a little h3. And now this kind of pressurizes me to take this bishop, and after takes, I would have a free pawn. You know, you're calculating a variation and there's a free pawn for you. For me, I'm materialistic, it takes a lot of restraint not to go for this variation in which I have a free pawn. I evaluated that here, I'm not completely winning, and I'm going for completely winning. And really on paper, I've traded off this terrible bishop on c1 for this royal knight on g4. I would never do that in my life, so let's not do it. And so c5, the restraint move. Here, bishop d2 is played, and now I go with bishop f4. Such a beautiful move. If you take my bishop, once again, g takes, and your knight is trapped, GG's. And now I'm attacking the bishop, that's the difference. You don't have time for h3 things, because now I have knight e5, and I'm still attacking your bishop with the same tricks, and it's like really, really powerful. Like let's say bishop c1 here, I take, queen takes, and now I take on d3, and I'm threatening your queen and nasty stuff on f2. So really, really nice. And so on bishop f4, my opponent goes bishop e1, and this is pretty beautiful. I mean, the bishop almost can't move, the queen cannot move except for h3, the rook can't move, and the knight can't move. So I play rook b8, like we're talking ultimate patience. Look, I have 3 pieces in the game. The queen's taking up h5, so it's still important, but my rook is still not doing anything. So we bring the last piece into the attack, rook b8, attacking b2, and now this c5 pawn comes to fruition. There's no b4 here. There is b4, but after takes, I open the c file for myself, and I like this for future purposes. Now I go knight e5, attacking d3, or just putting a little hold on d3. You can't go queen h3 with resources because I'm attacking d3, or so I thought. My opponent goes queen g3 anyways. And now, it took all of the power that I own in this world to not take this pawn. It's the correct decision. If I take this pawn, well, it's still completely winning, but after queen h5, I have to really trust myself to win this. The endgame is pretty obvious actually, like something like this. Instead, I go for better. g4 first, forcing the queen to trap herself even more. On queen h4, I have bishop g5. So queen h5 really, and then I go queen f6. Still not taking this pawn, like, because it would give a queen, but like trapping the queen further. And now h4. And after en passant, which is forced, it's not. I go against the rules and I don't take en passant because the queen is absolutely trapped. And I go rook c8. I still don't take the pawn because now queen takes the pawn. Instead, I go on the open c file that I opened 5 moves earlier. So here I'm hunting for c2, rook c1 options, and just invading on the king side here with my beautiful rook. It's gonna be amazing. So here, what can actually white do? You can't move your queen. You can move your rook to f1. I mean, no. You can't move your bishop. Physically cannot move your bishop. It's crazy. The knight can only move to f1. It's insane. My opponent goes knight f1, to which here I go knight takes d3. And finally I take the pawn. Like, I'm so excited. And your bishop is pretty much trapped unless you defend it with knight h2. It's a forced move. And now we get to a position where it's all forced. And no, there's no queen takes g4 because I simply take the bishop and I'm completely winning here. And nor is there rook takes because I also just take the bishop and white has no counterplay. So knight h2, and now I take in trade, and after king h1 I go rook c1, and this bishop is pretty much lost. I mean, if you just go anywhere else, it's checkmate in one move with knight takes f2. And so here my opponent goes for queen e8, the only square this queen can finally venture to, and now I take the bishop, and I have 3 minutes here, so I'm pressing against the time. I looked at all the checks, I was good, and I know that after queen e7, king h8, queen check, king g7, and now if my opponent goes queen e7 check, I had prepared the insane king walk that is ultra rare in chess. Nigel Short infamously did it for the first time with the white pieces, in which you march up your king, check, king h5, check, king takes h4, and after check, king h3, I had this prepared. you can't do anything, and mate is coming on h2 or f2. The rook is pinned and cannot go to g3. So here my opponent took on e6, and I didn't take here with mate. I missed it completely. I knew it, but I missed it. I was low on time, and I found another checkmating pattern that was just as beautiful and worked just as much, but it was like 4 moves more. And here I found a forced, beautiful attack. Rook takes check, king takes, queen c1 check, king h2 is forced, and now g3. I saw this all in my mind. It's crazy though. If pawn takes, which is absolutely delicious, I couldn't believe it when I saw it. I have queen d2 check. If the king goes down, it's mate on g2 via queen g2 checkmate. And if the king goes up, I do not have checkmate on g2. Instead, I have knight f4. I wished this was played. This forks these 2 pieces. I showed my opponent this after the game, and after takes, now the alley is opened, and this is checkmate. My opponent didn't go for this, but after takes, king takes, there's a forced mate in 2, which is really nice. It's queen back to f4 with check. The king doesn't escape. Instead, it's forced to h3, and now knight takes f2 is checkmate. I checkmated my opponent. And this was my bounce back game, which ultimately revived my tournament at round 4. Game 3 for me, and now for me I have 1 out of 3, but in the pairings I have 2 out of 4 because I had a bye, and we are back in it, ladies and gentlemen. That was the recap of Game 3. Thank you for being on this journey for me, because as you saw from me smiling for 40 minutes, I enjoyed this game. I enjoy even more sharing this game with you. I love when you guys comment and say, keep going, Zach. You guys encourage me to go further. And ultimately, that's what makes me not give up. The consciousness that you are there for me. And I really appreciate it. And I hope that I can serve as an inspiration back to you in this great journey that we're going through together.